United States F-22 Raptor, the apex predator. This is the jet every other fighter on this list is measured against. The F-22 was the world's first true fifth-generation fighter, entering service in 2005, built by Lockheed Martin for one job above all others: air superiority. Kill everything else in the sky first. Its edge comes from a combination almost nobody else has fully matched: genuine all-aspect stealth, paired with super cruise, the ability to fly faster than sound, past Mach 1.5, without lighting its afterburners. Add thrust vectoring nozzles that let it point its engines and pull maneuvers that shouldn't be physically possible, and you get a fighter that sees first and shoots first. Here's the catch that defines it: it's brutally expensive, and the US banned its export by law, so no ally ever got one. Only about 187 were ever built, and the line is closed. The most dominant air-to-air fighter ever made, and one of the rarest. United States F-35 Lightning II, the flying computer. If the F-22 is the pure dogfighter, the F-35 is the opposite philosophy. It's a single-engine, multi-role fifth-gen fighter, and its real weapon isn't speed or agility. It's information. The F-35 fuses data from radar, sensors, and other aircraft into one picture, then shares it across the battlefield, acting as a quarterback in the sky as much as a shooter. It comes in three flavors: the A for conventional runways, the B that takes off short and lands vertically for the Marines, and the C built for carriers. Here's the myth to correct. People mock the F-35 for not out-turning older jets at a dogfight, but it was never meant to dogfight. It's designed to detect and kill enemies from far away, before they even know it's there. It's now the most produced stealth fighter in the world, flown by over a dozen nations. Not the flashiest, but the backbone of Western air power. Russia, Su-57 Felon, the supermaneuverable question mark. Russia's answer to the F-22 and F-35 is a big twin-engine fifth-gen fighter, built for raw agility. Where it shines is maneuverability. Thrust vectoring engines let the Su-57 perform extreme, almost gravity-defying turns and post-stall tricks that thrill at every airshow. In a close-range knife fight, that flexibility is genuinely dangerous. But here's the on-paper versus reality problem. On paper, it's a stealth fighter equal to the Raptor. In practice, analysts widely doubt its stealth matches its Western rivals because of visible design compromises and exposed engines, and Russia has struggled to mass-produce it. Only a small number actually exist, a fraction of the hundreds of F-35s flying. So the Su-57 is a fascinating split, a superb flying machine that may be a generation behind in the stealth and sensor technology that actually decides modern air combat. Impressive in a turn, unproven where it counts most. China, J-20 Mighty Dragon, the long-range hunter. China's J-20 is the most serious non-Western fifth-gen fighter flying, and it's built for a very specific mission. It's large, much bigger than an F-2002, with a long fuselage and a big internal fuel load. That size isn't an accident. The J-20 is designed for long-range and high-speed interception, built to strike distant, high-value targets like tankers and surveillance planes far out over the Pacific. Then get home. It entered service in 2017, making China only the third nation to field a stealth fighter of its own. Here's where reality complicates the picture. For years, the J-20's biggest weakness was its engines. China has struggled to produce a powerful homegrown engine, forcing reliance on interim designs that limited its performance. Though newer versions are closing that gap fast. So the Mighty Dragon is less a dogfighter and more a long-armed sniper, a stealthy platform built to kill the enemy's support aircraft from a distance. United Kingdom, Eurofighter Typhoon, the European dogfighter. The Typhoon is what happens when four nations build a fighter together. Developed by the UK, Germany, Italy, and Spain, it's a 4.5 generation jet, meaning extremely capable, but not stealth. Where it dominates is the dogfight. Its twin engines and Delta Wing plus canard layout make it blisteringly fast and agile, and it can supercruise past Mach 1.5 without afterburner, rare for a non-stealth fighter. In a close, fast, turning fight, the Typhoon is one of the best in the world. It started life as a pure air superiority fighter, and that DNA shows. Over time, it grew into a capable multi-role jet that can hit ground targets too. The trade-off is the obvious, one in the stealth era. It's a brilliant fighter you can still see on radar, so against a fifth-gen opponent it has to rely on tactics, networking, and raw performance. A pilot's airplane, and a genuinely fearsome one up close. France. Dassault Rafale, the do-everything jet. France built the Rafale on one stubborn principle: independence. While Britain and Germany teamed up for the Typhoon, France went its own way and built a fighter entirely on its own terms. Dassault calls it omni-role, and that's the whole idea. One jet that does everything well: air superiority, ground attack, reconnaissance, anti-ship strike, and even carrying France's nuclear deterrent, all in a single airframe. Like the Typhoon, it's a 4.5 Gen twin-engine Delta Canard, fast and agile. But the Rafale's signature strength is versatility. A naval version flies off French carriers, something the Typhoon never managed, making it one of very few non-American jets cleared for carrier operations. Its combat record in places like Libya, Mali, and Afghanistan made it a major export success, snapped up by India, Egypt, Qatar, and others. Not stealthy, but supremely flexible and combat-proven. The Rafale is the Swiss Army knife of modern fighters, master of all trades, by design. Sweden. Saab Yas 39 Gripen, the clever lightweight. Sweden doesn't try to outmuscle anyone. It tries to outthink them. The Gripen is a small single-engine 4.5 Gen fighter built around a uniquely Swedish problem. How does a small country keep flying if its air bases get bombed? The answer shaped the whole design. The Gripen is built to operate from public roads, refuel and rearm in about 10 minutes with a tiny conscript ground crew, and get back in the air. Here's its real superpower, and it's not glamorous: cost. The Gripen is famously one of the cheapest modern fighters to buy and to fly per hour, often a fraction of what a twin-engine jet costs to operate. That makes it deadly value for smaller air forces. The trade-off is raw capability. With one engine and a lighter frame, it carries less and flies shorter ranges than the heavyweights. But for the money, almost nothing matches it. Smart, frugal, and perfectly suited to its purpose. Germany, Eurofighter Typhoon, the same jet, a different job. Germany flies the very same Typhoon as Britain because they built it together along with Italy and Spain. So instead of repeating the airframe, let's talk about what makes Germany's use of it distinct. The Typhoon was a true multinational project, with each country building specific sections: the wings, the fuselage, the nose, on shared assembly lines, a deliberate way to spread cost and industrial work across the partners. Germany's Luftwaffe operates the jet primarily for air defense and NATO duties, including high-profile air policing missions guarding Allied airspace. Here's the interesting wrinkle. For years, Germany configured its Typhoons more conservatively than Britain, slower to add advanced ground attack and weapons upgrades that the RAF pushed for. Same jet, different national priorities. It shows how one aircraft can serve very different doctrines depending on who's flying it. Germany's Typhoon is proof that a fighter isn't just its hardware. It's also the strategy of the Air Force behind it. India, HAL Tejas, the long road to independence. India's Tejas is a small, single-engine, lightweight multi-role fighter, and its real story is about self-reliance. India wanted to design and build its own fighter rather than forever buying foreign jets. That ambition came at a price. The Tejas program took decades, far longer than planned, before the jet finally entered service, which is the honest on-paper versus reality lesson here. Building a homegrown fighter from scratch is brutally hard, and the timeline showed it. But the result is a genuinely capable light fighter. Its delta wing makes it agile. It's one of the lightest modern combat jets in its class, and it gives India a domestic platform it controls and can keep upgrading. The trade-offs are size and reach. As a light single-engine jet, it carries less and flies shorter missions than heavier rivals. Still, the Tejas represents something bigger than its specs. A nation crossing the hard threshold of designing its own modern fighter and finally getting it flying. Japan, Mitsubishi F-2, the supersized Viper, Japan's F-2 looks instantly familiar, and there's a good reason. It's based on the American F-16, co-developed by Mitsubishi and the US in the 1990s. But it's no straight copy. Think of it as an F-16 scaled up and retailored for Japan's needs. It has a noticeably larger wing for better range and heavier payloads, and it pioneered advanced materials and one of the first active electronically scanned radars on a fighter. Its defining mission flows straight from geography. Japan is an island nation, so the F-2 was built heavily around anti-ship strike, able to carry 4 heavy anti-ship missiles to defend the seas around the country. The trade-off was cost. All that customization made the F-2 far more expensive than the F-16 it was based on, so relatively few were built. A smart, specialized adaptation of a proven jet tuned for one country's very particular problem. The F-16's bigger, ocean-guarding cousin. By far, that's 10 fighters across 10 nations covered. Which jet would you actually want in the sky, the pure stealth of the Raptor or the do-everything Rafale? And which one surprised you the most? Drop your answer in the comments. South Korea, KAI KF-21 Boramae. The half-step to stealth, South Korea's KF-21 is one of the most interesting fighters in development right now because of how cleverly it splits the difference. It's a twin-engine 4.5 generation jet that looks strikingly like an F-22, and that resemblance isn't just for show. Here's the smart part. The KF-21 has a stealth-shaped airframe with a reduced radar signature, but early versions carry their weapons externally rather than hidden inside, which limits full stealth. South Korea did this on purpose, fielding a strong, affordable fighter now with a clear path to add internal weapons bays and fuller stealth later. It first flew in 2022 and is still being tested and brought into service. The trade-off is that, for now, it isn't a true 5th-gen jet, and it has plenty left to prove. But the ambition is serious. The KF-21 is a nation-building a near-self fighter step by step, and laying the groundwork to join the 5th-gen club on its own terms. Israel, F-15I Ram. The long-range hammer, Israel's F-15I, named Ram, meaning thunder, is a specialized version of the American F-15E Strike Eagle, and it exists for one overriding purpose: reach. Israel needed a jet that could strike targets very far away, deep beyond its borders, and return. The big twin-engine F-15 airframe was the perfect starting point. The Ram is a 2-seat long-range strike fighter built to carry a heavy load of bombs and missiles across long distances with great precision. Israel added its own advanced electronics and systems, tailoring the jet to its specific doctrine. It's not stealthy, and it's not the newest design on this list, but it is devastatingly capable at what it does. Reliable, long-legged, and able to haul serious firepower to distant targets. The Ram shows a recurring theme on this list. Sometimes the smartest move isn't building a brand new jet, it's taking a proven heavyweight and tuning it precisely to your mission. Iran, HESA Kowsar, the old airframe in new clothes. Iran presents the Kowsar as a modern, domestically built fighter, and this is where on-paper versus reality matters most. On paper, Iran describes it as an advanced 4th-generation jet of its own making. In reality, the Kowsar is essentially a modernized version of the American F-5, a light fighter design dating back to the 1960s, that Iran operated long ago and has since reverse-engineered and updated. The genuine achievement is in the upgrades. Iran added newer avionics and a modern cockpit to a very old airframe, which, under heavy international sanctions cutting off access to foreign jets, is a real feat of making do. But it's important to be accurate. The Kowsar is not a frontline match for the modern fighters elsewhere on this list. It's a decades-old design kept relevant through domestic engineering, a symbol of self-sufficiency under pressure far more than a cutting-edge warplane. Resourceful? Yes. Revolutionary? No. Pakistan, JF-17 Thunder. The budget workhorse. The JF-17 answers a very practical question. What if you can't afford the expensive jets? Co-developed by Pakistan and China, the JF-17 is a lightweight, single-engine, multi-role fighter built around one priority: affordability. It's one of the cheapest modern combat jets in the world, and that's the entire point. The goal was to replace Pakistan's aging fleet with a capable, modern fighter that the country could actually afford in numbers. and even help build domestically. It carries modern radar and weapons, handles air-to-air and ground attack roles, and gets the core job done without the premium price tag. The trade-offs are exactly what you'd expect from a budget design. It doesn't match the range, payload, or sophistication of the heavyweight fighters, but it was never trying to. The JF-17 is about fielding real air power on a tight budget. Affordable, practical, and produced in real numbers. Proof that a fighter doesn't have to be cutting edge to be genuinely useful. Turkey. TAI KAAN. The newcomer aiming high. We end with the most ambitious jet on this list, one that's barely begun flying. The KAN is Turkey's bid to build its own fifth-generation stealth fighter, a large twin-engine jet meant to rival the F-35 and eventually replace Turkey's older fighters. On paper, the ambition is enormous. A homegrown stealth fighter with internal weapons and modern sensors, putting Turkey in an elite club only a handful of nations have reached. The reality check is simple. It's very early. The KAN made its first flight in 2024 and has years of development, testing, and refinement ahead before it's a real combat aircraft. And it currently relies on foreign engines while Turkey works toward a domestic one. So treat the KAN as a statement of intent more than a finished weapon. A nation reaching for the hardest tier of military aviation. Whether it fully arrives is a story still being written, but the ambition alone puts Turkey on the map.